I'll start with my experience at ABC's Enhanced TV. We did two-screen interactive television back in the early 2000s and even late 90s. People think that two-screen as sort of a new thing, but it's really at least the second go-round. Back when we did it, there were no tablets, there were no mobile phones. So we did it for laptops and even for desktop. And it was a different approach that we had at ABC and Disney, where we really heavily programmed interactive experiences for very specific programs. And those programs were Who Wants to Be a Millionaire, Monday and Sunday Night Football, the Academy Awards, where we had a team of people that was actually developing content for you to play along. And generally there was a game as part of the experience. So Who Wants to Be a Millionaire was our real first success, and allowed you to play along with the contestant on television. So on your laptop, you would actually see the answers to the question as Regis would ask the question. You would actually have the opportunity to answer that question on your laptop at the exact same time as that person on television. And it was timed to the second. And we got some great usage, great experience. It was a pretty good little business for the Walt Disney Company. But we had a little bit of trouble growing the scale of it because, as I said, there were no tablets, there were no mobile phones at that time. I think there's really, a new opportunity to reach scale in the second screen today with those outlets, and we'll see how those do. We have, our agency is involved, and Z-Box is here, and we're working with them, and we're really excited about the opportunity of blazing the new trail of the second screen. So that's where my background comes from. And then after that, I got involved in video on demand dynamic ad insertion when I was at Tandberg, a part of Ericsson, and most recently at Canoe Ventures, where I headed up the interactive TV part of the business there before it was shut down. And some real interesting experiences there, but also knowledge of the big challenges in the traditional TV space of bringing interactivity into what we used to call, and I guess still call, the single screen.
Yeah, so I think I wanted that context because, one, I think it gives you incredible sort of runway of personal reflection as far as, so when we get out, we're not beholden to that legacy set-top box environment anymore, and now we're really, it's sight, sound, and motion in different forms, and audience behaviors vary depending on the screen that they're using and the size, right, and the location and context, but it's pure IP, right? I mean, where do you start? Like when you're serving your clients, in television it was always about, okay, how do we better leverage a 30-second spot, right? And now it's kind of, it's a wide open green field, and what's the point of kind of arrival and origin to get you from A to B and help a client?
Well, I think when you ask where do you start with what are the client's objectives? Really, I mean, it's all about that, and then you look at all the different opportunities in terms of advanced media, whatever you want to call it, and say, well, what are those opportunities that fit with that client's objectives? Is their objective reach? Is it frequency? Is it engagement? What are they trying to accomplish? What are they trying to do with their advertising? And then you can start taking a look at, well, what are the opportunities that they can exploit in order to reach those objectives? So
I think that's interesting, right? Because we've probably never gotten a client brief that says my objective is reach and frequency, right, from a brand manager. And so you sort of distill from hopefully business KPIs into some type of media success or performance metric, right, to kind of connect the dots.
Right.
I mean, when do you know that video is the right medium? And then beyond that, when do you know that interactive video is an even more exciting opportunity for a brand to help reach their objectives? I
mean, it's a good question. It's that's what we get paid for, right? To bring our experience to bear and try to figure out, well, what's the right medium, what's the right platform for a particular client's objective. But you have to look at, for example, what's their target. So we have, at MediaVest, we have a large pharmaceutical advertiser, Bristol Myers Squibb, and some of their drugs have a very wide target, and some of them are very, very narrow, and there's a very small number of sufferers of a particular condition. And so if you're trying to help them hit that target, well, broad-based television is probably not the mechanism for that, because there's just going to be a tremendous amount of waste.
Right.
So how do you help them use addressable or targeting to hit a very small target? Whereas it's very different if you're saying, well, they have a drug that has a very wide number of people who are suffering from that condition and are potential customers of that particular product. So you have different mechanisms that you're going to try and use to reach that potential audience.
I know you mentioned ZBox and you have some things in the pipeline with them, but what are you, just sort of newly minted on the agency side of the business, what are you most excited about right now for clients? Like what are you bullish on, and what really, when you get up in the morning, you're like, I want to create a proof point, and that's where, I want to take a client and do some really amazing things. And what's that runway?
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you one of the things that I'm really excited about is we're going to be going into a beta with a company in the next month or so, and I don't think I can, under NDA, say who they are yet, but what they're trying to do is put an advertising model against, let's say, iTunes. iTunes, you go there and for $1.99, you're going to buy access to a television episode, or for $3.99, you're going to buy access to a movie. And today, really, to get the first window content, stuff that is premium movies that have just come out, or a television program that just aired, there is really no ad-supported means to get access to that content. You have to pay cash. And so this company that we're going to be working with on their beta has actually gone out there and negotiated rights to acquire content in that first window and to put an ad model against it, so that you get to earn credit by looking at ads to go and then take that credit and purchase access to a television episode that aired last night. And there really is no other way to do that. And it's exciting to me because when I look at the video landscape, I say, there's people who are willing to pay $1.99 an episode. There are people who are willing to pay $7.99 a month for Netflix. There are people who are willing to pay $75 a month for Comcast. But I've always believed that you have to provide multiple different ways for a viewer, a consumer, to get access to a piece of content. There are some people who are willing to watch ads in order to get that access. And really, there aren't a lot of means for episodic television content that runs on cable channels or movies to get that recent content via an ad model. So I think that's a really interesting and exciting new thing that we're going to see more of.
So this is really interesting, right? Because this gets back to sort of one of the age-old challenges in the ad world, and that is like, if a campaign doesn't deliver, the media guys point to the creative guys, and the creative guys point to the media guys, and it's sort of this like back and forth, right? Mm-hmm. So to me, when I think about that opportunity, I say to myself, wow, so like Sugar Baby is a great example. It was a Virgin Mobile campaign, right? Mm-hmm. It was one of the most successful mobile campaigns that we've had. And if anybody remembers, it was basically you consume an ad, an interactive ad, or research online, and Virgin would give you minutes. It was incredibly successful. But the reality is that if we talk about this opportunity, if the brand's creative is really bad, mm-hmm. or if it's not entertaining and it doesn't lend itself to being, a value exchange and sort of relevant, that would create a disincentive around the incentive of getting free content for watching an ad, right? Mm-hmm. So like what is the quality assurance in these new mediums? How do you, as a media buyer, right? Because you're not the ECD. Mm-hmm. How do you inject that to sort of set yourself up for success?
That's a good question. I can't give you an answer, but quality, that's a prerequisite for successful campaigns. I mean, right. As you said, we're media buyers. We don't create content. We don't create ads for our clients, but part of the value exchange that digital offers is the ability to actually see what the effectiveness is of your creative, and that to be able to rotate it out or compare it against two different pieces of creative that you have, and then put the more weight behind the more effective campaign. That's what some of the big promise of digital is. It's very difficult to do that in traditional television and cable and broadcast. So it's an exciting element of digital.
And are your creative partners getting excited about these opportunities, or is it, this is one, are they excited about sort of this opportunity to shine and new technology and new channels and new platforms, or is it something that's requiring a little bit of, hugging it out to make them feel safe and comfortable? You know, where do you think, and not specifically within Publicis and your colleagues, but just in general, what's your gut tell you the industry, where are we at a point in time?
I mean, I don't really have a window into that. I hope that they're excited. I mean, that's their job. So if they're not excited about that challenge, you know, that's a problem for them. You know, a very good friend of mine, when I used to work at Disney at ESPN, one of his favorite sayings, one of my favorite little aphorisms is, no problem, no job, right? You know, if it's easy, right, well, then we can hire somebody for a lot less money to do it. So if you want to operate at the edge and be effective, then, you know, you have to take on the big challenges. So, you know, that's just part of the job for creatives.